You know that feeling after a workout where everything just seems lighter? Like, I don't know, the problems that were crushing you an hour ago suddenly feel manageable. That's not in your head. Well, actually, it is in your head, but in the most literal, biological way possible. And once you understand what's really happening up there, you'll never look at exercise the same way again. So here's something wild. Your brain doesn't care if you're running from a predator or running on a treadmill. So to your brain, movement is survival, and survival gets rewarded with happiness chemicals. So we're going to talk about why that matters, how you can use it, and honestly, why most people are doing this completely wrong. I'm going to show you how a 20-minute walk can do what hours of scrolling can't, and why your gym routine might be making you miserable instead of happy, and the actual timeline for when you'll start feeling different. Because here's the thing, knowing exercise helps with your mood is useless. Knowing when you'll feel it, why it works, and how to actually make it happen, well, that changes everything. So let's start with what happiness actually is in your brain, because we throw that word around like it's one thing, but your brain is running 4 completely different happiness systems, and exercise hits all of them. That's why it works so well. Okay, first of all, you've got dopamine, right? This is your motivation chemical. This is your I want to do that again signal. So when you exercise, your brain releases dopamine. But here's what's interesting. It's not just during the workout. So your brain starts releasing it when you're thinking about exercise, especially if you've done it before and it felt good. So this is why people get addicted to running or lifting weights. Their brains literally learned to crave it. All right, next we've got serotonin. So this one regulates your mood baseline, so your sense of contentment and stability. And when you move your body, especially outdoors in sunlight, your serotonin production goes up. So this is the chemical that antidepressants try to increase artificially, but exercise does it naturally. And honestly, scientifically, it shows that the exercise version seems to last longer. Next, we've got endorphins. These are your natural painkillers, your built-in morphine. So during intense exercise, these flood your systems. So that's the famous runner's high that people talk about. But the great news is you don't need to run marathons to get them. A hard 15-minute session can trigger the same response. And here's the one nobody talks about enough. Endocannabinoids. Yes, your brain makes its own cannabis-like chemicals. And these create feelings of calm, they reduce anxiety. So moderate, rhythmic exercise like walking, swimming, cycling triggers these. This is why a long walk can make your racing thoughts just stop. So now here's what makes this different from the other ways that we work with our happiness. When you get dopamine from your phone, from food, from shopping, it's quick, it's intense, and then it crashes. So your brain adapts fast, and suddenly you need more to feel the same hit. But exercise-triggered happiness is different. It's slower to build, but it's more stable, it's more lasting, and your brain doesn't develop the same tolerance to it. So think about it this way. Scrolling gives you dopamine hits every few seconds, tiny sparks. But exercise gives you a sustained release over 30 to 60 minutes. Plus, it triggers the other 3 systems simultaneously. So it's like comparing a firework to a campfire. One looks flashier, but let's be honest, which one actually keeps you warm? So that's the chemistry. But the structure of the brain is changing too, and this is where it gets really wild. So your hippocampus, that's your memory center, your learning hub, actually grows when you exercise regularly, like measurably grows. So scientists can see it on brain scans. We're talking about a 2% volume increase every year with regular aerobic exercise. Now, that might sound tiny in brain terms, but that's reversing 1 to 2 years of aging. You're literally growing your young brain tissue. And your hippocampus is directly connected to your emotional regulation. So when it shrinks, which happens with chronic stress, depression, and aging, you struggle more with negative emotions. They hit harder, they last longer, they feel more overwhelming. And when it grows, you become naturally more resilient. So the same stressful situation that would have wrecked you before, you can handle it better now. Not because you're tougher emotionally, but because your brain physically has more resources to work with. So then there's your prefrontal cortex, basically your brain's CEO, all right? This is where you make decisions, you control impulses, you regulate your reactions. So exercise strengthens this region and it improves its connections to other parts of your brain. This is why people who regularly exercise are shown to make better decisions. They stick to their goals more easily. They react less impulsively to stressful situations. But here's my favorite part. Exercise improves the connection between your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. So your amygdala is your fear control center, your panic button. So when it's poorly connected to your prefrontal cortex, your fear reactions run wild. So you overreact to small stresses and everything feels threatening. But when that connection strengthens through exercise, your rational brain can actually calm down your fear brain. You stop catastrophizing. You stop spiraling. Your anxiety literally has less power over you. And this isn't temporary. These are structural changes. You're rebuilding the architecture of your brain. So the protein that makes all this possible is called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So think of it like fertilizer for your brain cells. When you exercise, BDNF levels spike. And this protein helps your existing neurons grow stronger connections and supports the birth of new brain cells. So for a long time, scientists thought you could grow new brain cells as an adult. That was just wrong. Exercise proves it. You can literally grow new neurons, especially in your hippocampus, well into your later years. Okay? So really know that. It is possible to grow your brain cells, even though scientists thought it wasn't. Okay, so all of this sounds great in theory, but when do you actually feel it? Because that's what matters, right? Okay, here's the honest scientific timeline. Immediately, like within 30 minutes of finishing a workout, you get increased blood flow to your brain. So this temporary spike in BDNF and those feel-good chemicals we talked about. If you're feeling anxious or stressed before you exercise, you're probably going to feel noticeably calmer afterwards. This happens every single time, even if it's your first workout in years, all right? And I know for myself, I was at the gym yesterday and I got to the gym and I was in such a great mood because I knew I was going to feel so good after I'd done my training. So after one workout, you mightn't feel dramatically different, but you will sleep better that night. And better sleep means better mood the next day. So even a single session starts this positive cycle. Now, science says that within 2 weeks of consistent exercise, we're talking 3 to 4 times a week, nothing crazy, right? Most people notice you're feeling more stable. So for me, my exercises, I play sport and I go to the gym, all right? I actually am exercising pretty much every day, but 3 to 4 times a week is great, right? This doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be happy all the time, but you're going to be less affected by small frustrations. So things that would have irritated you before just don't hit as hard. So you're building emotional cushioning. Now, around the 1 month mark, science says that your baseline mood starts to shift. You wake up feeling a bit more optimistic. You have more energy throughout the day. The 3 p.m. crash isn't as brutal, and you start looking forward to your workouts instead of dreading them because your brain has learned they make you feel good. Now we get to 3 months in, and this is where the real magic happens. Your brain has physically changed. So you've got new neurons, you've got new blood vessels, you've got stronger connections. And people around you might start commenting that you seem different. And they might find that you're more positive, you're more energetic, you're more present, and you're not just feeling happy during or after your workout. Your general baseline of happiness is higher. So stressful situations that used to derail you for days might only bother you for hours. Then we look at the 6-month mark, 6 months to a year of consistent exercise. You're basically operating with an upgraded brain, all right? Your resilience to stress is significantly higher. Your ability to focus improves. Your mood is more stable. And weirdly, you start needing less external validation to feel good. So you are now generating more happiness from within. But here's the catch. Consistency matters way more than intensity. So if you're doing moderate exercise 4 times a week for 6 months, this is going to change your brain more than doing intense exercise sporadically. So your brain needs these regular, repeated signals that this is the new normal. All right, here's the big one. Let's talk about why most people don't stick with exercise, even when they know it would help them. Because if all of this brain science is so convincing, why isn't everyone doing it? Okay, so the first thing is that people go too hard too fast. I was talking with one of my students the other day. She made a plan this year to do 2 weight trainings a week. And then we were talking about her goal, and she said, I stopped myself from doing 3, even though I'm really enjoying it. Oh my God, I was so happy because that is the right attitude. She really was seeing that if she goes too hard too fast, she's going to blow it. So if you haven't exercised in months or years and then you decide to go all in, intense workouts, you're sore, you're exhausted, and your brain associates exercise with suffering instead of reward. So your dopamine system learns the wrong lesson. Instead of exercise makes me feel good, it learns exercise hurts, and then you quit. Okay? So the research is really clear. For mental health benefits, you need moderate intensity exercise, not extreme. So we're talking about a brisk walk, we're talking about a casual bike ride, a swimming session where you can still hold a conversation, tennis, pickleball, things like that. So you should finish feeling energized, not destroyed. All right. The second reason people stop is that people treat exercise like punishment. So like it's something they have to do to earn the right to exist in their body. And that mindset poisons the whole experience. So your brain picks up on that resentment and it resists. You're trying to force happiness through an activity, but you've framed that activity as a chore, so it doesn't work. So instead, you need to find movement that genuinely doesn't feel like punishment. You know, maybe that's dancing in your living room, or maybe it's playing with your dog, or maybe it's gardening or hiking or playing basketball with friends, right? I play a lot of tennis, play a little bit of pickleball. I just love it. So the best exercise for your mental health is the one you'll actually do consistently without gritting your teeth through it. And the third reason is people expect dramatic results. So you work out once and you wonder why you don't feel transformed. But remember the timeline we talked about. The immediate effects are subtle. You're planting seeds. You're not harvesting crops. So if you judge the first workout by whether it solved all your problems, you'll conclude it doesn't work. But if you judge it by whether you feel slightly calmer or sleep slightly better that night, you'll see the evidence. And fourth, and this is big, people don't account for the social and environmental impact. So working out alone in a gym you hate at a time of day that doesn't work for your schedule, is literally setting yourself up for failure. But if you're exercising with a friend, or you're out in nature, or it's part of your morning routine before your day gets chaotic, that stacks the odds in your favor. Like, I love getting up in the morning. One of the first things I do after I've done my meditation practice is I take my dogs down to the beach and I walk them. I don't like walking my dogs on the road, but get me down to the beach where I love being with the ocean and seeing the pelicans and looking at the shells on the beach. Oh my God, I just love it. I get so excited. So suddenly that exercise every morning is super easy for me to do because I've paired it with things that I really enjoy. So your environment matters. Morning sunlight during your walk gives you an extra serotonin boost. Exercising in nature, even just a park, has really additional calming effects that indoor exercise doesn't give you. And moving with other people creates accountability. That's why when I go to the gym, I have a trainer because I can't get there otherwise. But it also adds a social bonding element that releases oxytocin, which is another feel-good chemical. All right, so let's get practical. What does an exercise routine for happiness look like? First, the minimum effective dose, 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week at moderate intensity. That's it. That's the threshold where you start seeing reliable mental health benefits. Not 90-minute gym sessions, not training for a triathlon, just consistent, moderate movement. All right? What does moderate intensity mean? You can talk, but not sing. All right? You're breathing heavier than normal, but not gasping. You feel like you're working, but you could sustain this pace for a while. On a scale of 1 to 10, you're at about a 5 or a 6. So for most people, this looks like brisk walking, casual cycling, swimming laps at an easy pace, dancing, recreational sports, tennis, pickleball, hiking, even vigorous housework like raking leaves or washing your car. Now, timing matters more than you might think. So morning exercise supposedly has special benefits because it helps regulate your circadian rhythm. This improves your sleep. This improves your mood the next day. So it sets a positive tone for your entire day. You've already accomplished something, ideally before 9 a.m. This gives you a psychological win. And morning sunlight exposure during exercise is particularly good for serotonin production. But midday exercise, well, supposedly that's got its own advantages. It breaks up your day, it resets your stress levels, and it can pull you out of an afternoon slump without needing caffeine. So if you're working from home, a lunch break walk can completely shift your mental state for the afternoon. If you go to the office, could do exactly the same. All right, evening exercise is great as well because it can help you process the day's emotions and it can discharge built-up stress. So I do exercise in the morning by walking my dogs, and then I have late afternoon exercise. I'm playing tennis, I'm going to the gym. This is important. If you exercise too close to bedtime, it can interfere with your sleep. So for moderate exercise, finish supposedly at least 90 minutes before bed. For intense exercise, even earlier. You want your body temperature and your heart rate to come back down before you try to sleep. So the real answer, the best time to exercise is whenever you'll actually do it consistently. If you're not a morning person, forcing yourself to do a morning workout is just going to make you miserable and you'll quit. So pick the time that feels most natural for your life. Start small, like embarrassingly small. So if you haven't been exercising, start with a 10-minute walk around your neighborhood, just 10 minutes. Do that for a week. Then maybe you add 2 more minutes, 5 more minutes. So the goal isn't to immediately transform into an athlete. The goal is to build a habit that your brain associates with feeling good, not with suffering. And please, 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 choose activities you actually enjoy. I can't stress this enough. The best exercise is the one you'll keep doing. So if you hate running, like me, don't run. I'm always jealous of people who love running. I think, oh, wish I could have all that yumminess that you get, that runner's high, but I don't like running. If you love dancing, dance. If you find group classes motivating, join a group class. If you prefer solo time in nature, go hiking. Your brain doesn't care what the activity is. It cares about the movement and it cares about the consistency. So here's something powerful most people miss when it comes to exercise and happiness. The benefits of exercise are cumulative. So every single workout builds on the previous one. So you're not just getting temporary relief, you're actually changing your brain's baseline capacity for happiness. So think of it like this. Each workout is a deposit in your mental health bank account. The more consistent your deposits, the more compound interest you earn. So after a few months, you're not just dealing with the benefits of today's workout, you're benefiting from the structural changes that have accumulated over weeks. So that means that even if one particular workout doesn't feel amazing, it still matters. You're still contributing to the larger architectural changes that are happening in your brain. So you're still growing new neurons. You're still strengthening your connections. You're still building those blood vessels. And those changes persist even on days when you don't work out. And here's what's really encouraging. These changes make you more resilient to stress going forward. So you're not just managing your current stress better, you're becoming someone who handles stress better in general. So the same situation that might have wrecked you before your exercise routine might not even register as particularly stressful 6 months in. So it's like you're upgrading your brain's operating system. And once you've made these changes, they're somewhat resistant to temporary breaks. So if you exercise consistently for 6 months and you take a week off or two, you don't lose all your progress. So your brain retains much of what it's built. Of course, you'll gradually lose those benefits if you stop completely for months, but short breaks don't erase all your hard work. So let's bring this back to reality, all right? You're probably not listening to this because you want to know brain science trivia, but I love it and I get really excited about it, all right? So here we're talking about something in your life that might feel hard right now. Maybe you're dealing with anxiety or depression or just a general sense of blah. Maybe you're stressed and overwhelmed. Maybe you feel stuck. But here's what I want you to understand. You have more control over your happiness than you think. Not because of positive thinking or willpower or discipline, but because your brain is physically changeable. So exercise is one of the most powerful tools that you have to reshape your brain toward greater happiness. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need special equipment. You don't need hours of free time. You need 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, doing something that doesn't make you miserable. That's it. That's the investment that can literally grow your hippocampus, that can strengthen your prefrontal cortex, that can improve the connection between your rational brain and your fear center, and can flood your system with chemicals that make you feel good. And unlike medication, which absolutely has its place and helps many people, exercise has no negative side effects. So you're not trading one problem for another. You're only gaining better mood, better sleep, better focus, better stress resilience, better physical health, better confidence. I mean, the benefits just stack up. But you have to actually do it. So knowing this information changes nothing if you don't act on it. And I get it, that's hard. So when you're depressed or you're anxious or you're overwhelmed, the last thing you feel like doing is exercising. Your brain might be screaming at you to stay still, to stay safe, to conserve energy. But that's exactly when you need it most. Because that feeling, that heavy, stuck, can't get moving feeling is partly your brain being understimulated. So it's starving for the neurochemicals and the blood flow and the new neuron growth that exercise provides. So you're not broken for feeling that way. Your brain is just running on empty and it's trying to protect you by keeping still. So the trick is to make the barrier to entry so low that you can't talk yourself out of it. Not, I'm going to the gym for an hour, just I'm walking around the block. 5 minutes, that's all. Give yourself permission to stop after 5 minutes if you want, but start. Because here's what usually happens. Once you start, once you get moving, your brain starts releasing those chemicals and you feel a tiny bit better. And that tiny bit better makes you want to keep going for another 5 minutes. And before you know it, you've done 10, 15, 20 minutes and you actually feel noticeably different. And even if you don't, even if you only do 5 minutes, you still make the deposit. You still sent the signal to your brain that this is something you do now. So you still contributed to the habit forming that's going to make tomorrow easier for you. Now, I'm not going to tell you that exercise is going to solve everything. Life is complicated. Our mental wellness is complicated. Some people need other support, but exercise is a foundation. It's something you can control. It's something you can start today. It's something that's going to make everything else easier. Better mood helps you be a lot more effective. Better sleep makes decisions clearer. If you're better stress resistance, it makes relationships smoother. Better brain function makes problem solving possible. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to believe it'll work. You don't have to be motivated. You don't have to feel like. You just have to do it. And do it consistently and let your brain chemistry do the rest. Because the motivation comes after you start feeling better, not before. Your brain's waiting for the signal that it's time to grow, to heal, to strengthen, and exercise is that signal. Every step, every movement, every workout is you telling your brain, I'm investing in myself. I'm worth the effort. I'm building something here. And 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you'll look back and barely recognize the person you are today. Not because you became someone different, but because you became more fully yourself. The version of you whose brain is working for you instead of against you. That's what exercise can do for your happiness. Not about looking a certain way or hitting fitness goals. It's about giving your brain the conditions it needs to generate the happiness you've been looking for. So start small. Start today. Trust the process. Because your brain knows what to do, right? With movement. It's been doing this for millions of years. And you're just giving it permission to work its magic. Okay? So, the only question is, are you ready to feel different? Don't forget, I'd love you to come to moniquerhodes.com, do the happiness quiz. Let me see where your happiness levels are and help get you on track and lots of other ways to be happier. If you know anybody who's struggling with happiness, please share this with them. As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.